Welcome to RFG Exchange. With businesses rushing to implement cloud and container infrastructures, the question is how IT can best enable business innovation and enterprise competitiveness expediently, while simultaneously remembering the credo, do no harm. We asked top IT vendor executives from Apprenda, Canonical, Cisco, Google, HPE, IBM, Intel, Red Hat, Sungard, and VMware their views on key components and critical success factors needed to make those transitions. We're going to cover some of those key concepts now in short form and in even greater detail in coming episodes. Here's some insight right now on the rounds. Let's get to it.
People are trying to really start to form what they call a policy in the data center. They want to say, what's the policy for my applications? What's actually happening? Because I want to have a policy model that maybe I want to use in my data center, on-prem in a private type environment, but I might want to have that same policy, out in the public cloud. And they're starting to look for tools that could help them kind of form this policy model. So with the tetration analytics, you really can expose everything that's happening in your data center so you can start to form some things around policy.
One of the biggest challenges that customers face nowadays is really being able to deploy these applications in a global nature, distribute them. This is how Google operates its services like search and Gmail and apps. We deliver our services very much in a global nature, and we make it easy for developers to really deploy these services in such a way that they could be accessed in a highly performant fashion around the world.
But then going down the stack is an area where VMware has often excelled and continues to excel. So things like programmatic networking or programmatic security, programmatic storage, machine isolation, these are not necessarily things that a company like Docker or Pivotal wants to spend a ton of time on. You have to pick your battles. So what we're seeing in this space is this maturity where you see this PaaS layer where the container vendors are mainly focused, and then below that, this IaaS or infrastructure as code layer is where VMware is continuing to add value. Now for us to make all of this work, what we're doing is we're making sure that we natively support container APIs.
So from our perspective, a container is a self-contained execution environment with its own virtual resources that share kernel of the operating system across. They are at user space, and they're a lightweight virtualization mechanism that manage resource isolation across multiple applications, decoupling them from the underlying operating system. So it's like a virtual machine, but does not have the usual startup overhead of the guest operating system.
Where we're trying to sort of change the ecosystem a little bit, where the story of containers is not, that's different from the story of virtual machines. People are nowadays very comfortable with virtual machines and the security around virtual machines. And what we are doing in my team in Intel is trying to show that you can use virtual machine technology to implement that lower layer of the container stack. So that you can use Docker for your logistics, but you get the security of a virtual machine when you run that container. By using a very lightweight and a very fast virtual machine layer.
A mutable container looks and feels and smells a lot like a virtual machine. It's got its underlying operating system and file system. Files on that file system change, they need to be backed up, they need to be upgraded. It's typically a container that might live for a long time, which is one way of using the containers. But there are also these ephemeral containers, the ones that are often useful in batch processing, in compression and transcoding, or very floating point intensive type calculation workload, something that takes a lot of data as input, spits out some data as output, and then goes away. And if you lose one of those, that's okay, blow it away, restart the job. And then the immutable container is somewhere in between those two, something that contains a file system that certain applications might need to modify for local running state, but that state's never safe.
Now that containers are popular and there's open source frameworks like Kubernetes and container orchestration tools, do we still need a PaaS? Is that really something that my organization needs? Do I need both PaaS? Tell me how these things work together. And the ironic thing about this is, Apprenda's been around for almost a decade now, and we've used containers from the very beginning, prior to Docker mainstreaming that concept. And but we didn't tell people about it, because when we told people we ran lots of applications in the same OS instance, it scared them. And now when we talk to people about containers, they say, well, of course. that's what we want to do here. So now it's become mainstream. So I think containers as a technology is a huge advancement in the acceptance and the use cases around PaaS.
As you want to become faster in evolving your applications, you realize that evolving a changing application that's one big package, it's often more onerous than evolving individual smaller pieces, right? So it's different movements that ended up with the realization of microservices that we have today, which is not about the number of lines, it's not about exactly what feature it does, but about declaring a concise API for a reusable system or a reusable business application.
Quickly define how we describe and understand bimodal IT, right? So that's companies that are basically segmenting their IT development operations into two distinct groups. You've got your Mode 2 applications. That's you're really your born in the cloud applications. Those are apps that don't have any constraints tied to them from a legacy infrastructure perspective. They're very deployable into public cloud platforms. Typically, your development teams around that are looking at speed to market, rapid iteration. It's all about time. It's about speed, failing fast, if you will, right? You have your Mode 1 operations, which is all about your legacy infrastructure, and that's about dependability. That's about incremental changes. Those are application environments that have been running within the organization for multiple years.
We have a very good product called Composable Synergy. So what is happening as you see industry is going? It's going back to bare metal where it started many years back. So our composable infrastructure, it is a fluid infrastructure. You can get a compute, you can on demand, you can get storage on demand. And what we did, Adam, with Docker, we launch our servers. Because of the partnership with Docker, our servers will be Docker ready. So any enterprises they want to run a container as a service, our servers will be ready.
As businesses speed to digitally transform the very nature of how they define and deliver core and expanded services, balancing legacy systems and processes with new solutions can be a tough tightrope to walk. RFG Exchange will continue drilling down on elements including architectural considerations, business alignment, criteria prioritization, and guiding principles in upcoming episodes. We'll also be tackling the somewhat hidden requirements of security and compliance, as well as other gotchas that can derail needed forward progress. Stay tuned for actionable insight with top vendor and practitioner executives you won't find anywhere else. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and on our website at rfgex.com. I'll see you next time.